Today I'm going to show you how to replace the alternator on your Toyota or Lexus with a V6 engine. Now in order to test the battery and alternator in your car, you should be getting just above 12 volts with the car off and no load. And with the car on, we should be getting about 14 volts. That way we know the alternator is charged. Now the alternator is located right at the top here. The first thing we need to do is get this fuse box out of the way and that belt off. Safety first, guys. We're going to remove the negative battery terminal. I'm going to remove this relay box here. And we can also remove this bracket if it's in your way. Now to get the belt off, we need to loosen up the pivot bolt A and the pinch bolt B, and then we can back off bolt C, which is going to allow the alternator to drop down so we can peel the belt off, and then we can just pull out all these bolts to get the whole alternator out. Next I'm going to loosen this 14mm pivot bolt for the alternator here. And now I need to loosen off this 12mm pinch bolt that's holding the tensioner bolt on. You've got my socket on there, and I'm just going to break that free. You can see I've got my ratchet on there. I'm just going to loosen up that pinch bolt. I've got my socket on the 12mm tensioner bolt. I'll just loosen that up. Having an air ratchet or electric ratchet definitely helps because these are a lot of turns just to get this belt loose. And with that loosened up, I'm going to push down on the alternator, remove the belt from the alternator, just peeling it back. So next up, I'm going to use a flat blade screwdriver and release this electrical connector from this holder. And I'll remove this cap covering the alternator terminal. And now I'm going to remove that 10mm nut and then remove its terminal. Next I'm going to remove this plug for the alternator regulator. There's usually a little clip here, but this one's broken. Pop that off. Now back at the front with everything disconnected, I'm going to fully remove this 12mm bolt. And then back up at the top, I'm going to remove the 14mm bolt completely now. Just remove that bolt. And now with the alternator free, I can slowly remove it from the engine. Now in some rebuilds you might have to replace this bracket onto the new one. Now I'm not going to be taking apart this alternator to show you how it works because I've already done that in the video linked above, so make sure you check that out if you want to know how the stator, the rectifier and the voltage regulator works all together to make the alternator charge the battery. Now around here Remy's the only one that really rebuilds alternators, otherwise you got to get a new one. I'm going to take the replacement alternator and we're going to put it in backwards. Now I'm going to replace the 14mm pivot bolt at the back here, and then once I cut the bolt I can just tighten it up. You're gonna leave it slightly loose so the alternator can pivot here. Now next up at the front here I have to catch this pinch bolt into this side of the alternator behind its bracket over here, and once I cut that bolt I'm just going to run it down. Now this is also a good time to replace your alternator belt, but this one's in good shape, so I'm just going to replace that on top of the alternator and make sure it's lined up with the crank and the AC compressor down below. And now that everything's in place, I'm going to tighten up this tensioner bolt here. And with the tensioner bolt starting to tighten up, I'm just going to feel the belt to make sure it's nice and snug. Now with the alternator in place, I can then tighten up this 12mm pinch bolt on the side here, and then snug down the 14mm pivot bolt at the top here. Plug in the regulator, then reinstall the power wire, and then replace this little cap here, replace this little clip here on the alternator wire, and remove this annoying fuse box back into the way here, and replace this bracket, snug down these two 10mm bolts, and replace the fuse box onto its, reconnect the battery terminal. Finally, we're going to start the engine. And that's pretty much how to replace the alternator on your car. Make sure you follow me on Instagram for more behind the scenes footage and subscribe for more videos just like this one.